Hello, listeners. We are super excited today because we've got a very special guest here on Discograffiti.
He's a member of the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame and the lead singer of one of the most iconic rock bands in history. It's an honor to have him on the show, so please welcome to the podcast the legendary Mr. David Lee Roth.
Diamond Dave. I'm going to call you Diamond Dave if that's all right, so we don't confuse you with my co-host here, who we'll call Regular Dave.
Oh, yes!
So, Diamond Dave, you've just announced your retirement from the music industry. Do you have any plans yet for next year, for 2022, other than taking some time off?
I'll tell you all about it.
Tell us what about it? Okay, let's switch gears here. Diamond Dave, the first 6 albums you made with Van Halen are timeless classics. What are some of the most indelible memories of making those albums? Are there any particular moments that stand out now that you look back on your life's work?
Yeah!
Well, what moments in particular?
God damn it, baby, no, I ain't lying to you. I'm only gonna tell you one time. Ah, yeah!
Well, you didn't really tell us one time, though. All right, tell us about your relationship with Eddie Van Halen and how that has changed over the years, and what kind of terms were you on when Eddie passed?
God damn it, baby, no, I ain't lying to you. I'm only gonna tell you one time. Ah, yeah!
Yeah, I know, you keep saying that.
Well, Diamond Dave, it's been a pleasure chatting with you. Please stop that, please. So, as I was saying, it's been a pleasure chatting with you, and thank you so much for joining us today. We have learned a lot. Yeah, welcome to Discograffiti, the music podcast that delivers the objective truth about the entire discography of every single artist and band that ever existed. How you doing, Joe? This is Dave Gebrow talking, and that guy...
I'm Joe Kennedy. Welcome to the pod today. Exciting day on the pod today.
Absolutely. Joe, I remember back in the day, we're talking, 31 years ago? Close
right?
to 32.
1990?
When I met you, you had long flaxen hair down to your toes.
It wasn't flaxen. I think flaxen means it's blonde, which it was not.
Wasn't it lighter than it currently is?
No, it's the same kind of... There was just more of it.
It was down to your tuchus, is what I'm trying to tell you.
Yeah. I had I kind of had long stringy 90s hair. Like I could have been like a guy in Pearl Jam or something, even though it was slightly pre-Pearl Jam.
No, you looked more like the guy from the Wonder Stuff, or...
Maybe, yeah.
Or,
it wasn't really like a full mullet. It was kind of all one length.
You looked like Walter Becker, basically.
You're right.
You did. You really...
But like
if Walter Becker was an enough's enough.
I did have a kind of proper mullet just a few years prior to that.
So you're telling me that the time that when I met you was not the apex of the hair length?
Well, it might have been long. It wasn't that it was just longer, but the mullet is 2 distinct haircuts on the same head. That's the key component of it. I definitely had the kind of like feathered looking jam in the front, and then the flowing locks in the back.
From where
I wore like round John Lennon glasses. It was a lot.
Yeah,
it was a lot.
The Wonder Stuff.
Yeah.
The longest my hair has ever been was during the lockdown, but it grows up and out. I got a Jufro, so I look ridiculous. I can't pull off a Walter Becker.
So today we'll be turning the spray cans. This is when we first came up with the concept of doing this show. This was one of the first names I threw out there that I really wanted to cover, and so today spray cans are getting turned on. Van Halen.
Yeah.
My, Eddie Van Halen was my childhood hero, my boyhood hero. I play music for a living. I play keyboards and guitar. And, a lot of how I learned how to play was learning how to play the riffs off these records and just figuring out how Eddie did all of this stuff. And I don't really play like him, but his approach to playing, especially the way he plays rhythm guitar and chord stuff, I think is there's a sort of like a very mathematical kind of logic to his playing, the way he constructs riffs. I think that's the way he constructs riffs and the way he plays rhythm guitar I think he was very, very influential.
He's
on
like
me.
a Mount Rushmore figure to you, basically. He really is. I mean, I definitely connect with the music. I had all their cassettes when I was a kid. I believe I may have fallen for the sham of the Hagar era and bought the first one. But if I did, that was the only one. The Diamond Dave stuff, spoiler alert, I had it all. And, I remember New Year's Eve 1983 into 84 when MTV premiered Jump. I remember who I was with, where I was. To me, that's like the Kennedy assassination.
Yeah. Well, I was at the time, 11-year-old kid that had a synthesizer, and that jump, playing the jump lick on the synth was like a great party trick.
Yeah,
got me a lot of attention.
A little bit of Bach, a little bit of rock and roll.
Yeah. Still have that synth to this day. My trusty Roland Juno 6. Still got it.
So what we're trying to sort of convey here is that you guys are in very good hands today. In fact, I'm in good hands today because I'm telling you, Joe knows his shit about this band. So we're going to go on a nice little wild ride here. These guys kind of are, early on. Why don't you go into our prehistory here on these guys?
What about when they were kids and stuff?
Yeah.
They're immigrants. Alex and Eddie, the brothers, they were born in Amsterdam. And they're from a mixed race family. Their dad is Dutch and their mom is Indonesian. So they kind of came to America. English, not their first language. They moved, I think Alex was 9 and Eddie was 7. So, they were kind of outsiders. They moved to Pasadena, but they quickly, their dad's a musician. Their dad was, I think, a professional musician back in Holland. And, their brothers definitely inherited the gift. They're both incredibly naturally talented. And so they just started kind of playing music and playing in bands.
The Broken Combs.
Right. Yeah, they played in a variety of different things. And the kind of famous story is that Eddie was originally the drummer and Alex was originally the guitar player. Eddie got very advanced on the guitar, wasn't really a great drummer. Alex struggled to play the guitar but was great at drums. It's like the Reese's Peanut Butter Cup of musical pairings.
I wonder how long that stupid bullshit went on until they figured it out.
Yeah, I don't know. But not that long, probably.
Yeah.
But so, I think it's like probably in the early 70s, they started kind of turning into what the sort of more modern incarnation of Van Halen.
The Trojan Rubber Company, right? I think that was the first incarnation. But then my favorite thing about the next name change is that they didn't know that there was another band called Genesis. Right. This is 1972. They'd never heard of Genesis. Yeah. So they were called Genesis. Mm-hmm. Then they found out, and then they switched to Mammoth.
So they start playing around the party scene in Pasadena in the early 70s, like around 72. And they, kick a lot of ass already. The brothers have there's a really good interview with David Lee Roth on Mark Maron's show where he talks about the early years of the band, and they had just an incredible work ethic. Those guys would just work. They would rehearse and just play for hours and hours. Isn't that right, Dave?
Yeah.
So thank you. They when they started playing out, they were already pretty polished and pretty badass. But any tape you hear of them playing at like a party or early demos, they just never sound anything but awesome.
And then at some point along the line, they needed a sound system, so they found a guy who had one and started renting it from him for $10 a night. Mm-hmm. That guy's name was David Lee Roth.
So they start gigging with Roth and
who at that time was fronting a local R&B band called the Red Ball Jets.
And the R&B thing I think is kind of key to understanding. Again, this is really good material that was in the Mark Maron episode of WTF with Roth. His approach to doing when they get into writing, he was very heavily influenced by R&B. And the songs that had those big like R&B kind of hooks, so he really brings that to the table. A kind of more like a sort of hip shaking kind of quality to Van Halen. Always looking for that big R&B style hooks. If you think about some of their songs in that context, it makes a lot of sense.
And the funniest thing to me about how David Lee Roth became part of the band is that the tension must have been so apparent from the beginning that it was like a push-pull thing with Eddie's style, because there were a whole bunch of auditions where they were like, nah, fuck this guy. We just need his sound system. So he failed the audition a shitload of times, then got into the band. So that had to have been in play early. And it's that to me is the success of the band, but they probably saw it as a potential enormous hindrance.
Yeah, well, again, you hear this. I think he wrote with them from pretty early on. So you listen back to some of the we'll get to their earliest recordings in a minute. But even then, he had a really good sense as a writer, as a songwriter. Some of the stuff that made it on their early albums, they were playing already at this time, like in early to mid 70s. But anyway, there was another character in the band, this guy Mark Stone, who was kind of the Pete Best of Van Halen, who quit the band to, I don't know, get a job or something. Loser. And then they found jovial, rotund bassist Michael Anthony, and the classic lineup is formed. He's actually kind of a key part of it. Michael Anthony's his voice, he does the great backup vocals. So you kind of got a lot going on,
and they became
a lot of weapons at their disposal.
They were a big grassroots band. I mean, this was not like they weren't critics' darlings or anything. This was just them, like doing all the grungy work themselves, putting up flyers, all that kind of thing.
Yeah, kind of around the mid '70s, they kind of graduated from playing the backyard parties and started playing on the Sunset Strip.
And that's where we enter Phase 1, punk metal, 1974 to 1979.
Right. So yeah, they start kind of playing the Strip. They make a demo in '74. These are known as the Cherokee Demos, and it's a pretty interesting snapshot. The first tune is kind of like a folk, it sounds like they're trying to do like Led Zeppelin 3 or something.
Yep. Side 2.
Yeah, right. So it's this kind of like spacey folk acoustic guitar thing. But then they already had early versions of
almost like Fleetwood Mac Landslide or something.
Yeah,
it's weird.
Right. Yeah, it's pretty weird. Kind of worth a listen to. You can find it on YouTube if you look for the Van Halen Cherokee Demos.
Very, as you called it, very proto.
Right.
This is a long way away from the Van Halen that we know, and they're basically all these strands of roads not taken.
Yeah. Ed already sounds incredible here. He's 19. He's already like totally burning. He's already a unique and amazing guitar player. He's 19 when he makes these demos, and so they started playing like at Gazzari's, and then the Whiskey, all the spots on the Sunset Strip, and they started building up a big following.
And then I believe it was Rodney Bingenheimer saw Van Halen at Gazzari's.
Yeah, so Rodney Bingenheimer is this kind of like local tastemaker legend. For those of you who don't know who Rodney is, so he's
I've seen him many a time hunkered over a bowl of soup.
Yeah, having a
Canters.
split pea soup canters. Yeah, he's still around. He's a part of their mythology. He kind of turned Gene Simmons onto them.
And it was, very odd because talk about the right guy to discover them. But, Gene was put together these demos called Zero Demos. And and it was a bunch
Gene wanted
of demos.
to sign them.
It was 29 tracks.
Yeah, Gene wanted to sign them. I guess they had he wanted his management company to manage them.
He also wanted to call them Daddy Longlegs.
Yeah. Fucking idiot. Okay.
Nobody was convinced though, for whatever reason. And you and I have both heard those demos, and they're fucking scorching. They're
really pretty great.
Good.
The Gene Simmons produced demos it's pretty interesting to listen. Well, they're already playing like Van Halen. They have a lot of there's a lot of them, and they have a lot of the riffs kind of together that would end up being on their subsequent albums. The way the Gene Simmons demos are recorded are very like dry and punchy. Their debut album they eventually made with Ted Templeman is very like cavernous reverb, like larger than life sounding, and the Gene Simmons demos have this kind of like tight, punchy, like you're watching them play in their rehearsal room or something. It's fun to listen to. Like Alex doesn't have the snare drum sound yet. And the main thing that's different, I feel like what they got drastically better at when they made the album is the vocal arrangements aren't quite there. Like the vocals aren't really quite up to the top level where they would get in a relatively short time. But yeah, they made there's
some
a lot
of the performances though. The one that jumps out to me is House of Pain. It just sounds like unhinged.
Yeah.
I remember
there's a lot of energy into the way they're playing.
It's like they were later. Yeah, the arrangements were improved, but also the energy was corralled a little bit.
Yeah. So the other thing they have going for them at this time is, now Ed's maybe 21, 22, and he's just head and shoulders above anybody else really playing guitar. At that, he's already got all the innovations of. Ed is a lot like, to me, he's similar to, he's kind of follows in the footstep of Les Paul. He's not only an amazing player, but he's also kind of an inventor and a pioneer, just with guitar technology. He was one of the first people to adopt the Floyd Rose tremolo, which is the whammy bar thing on the guitar, and to really do those exaggerated dive bomb effects. Before that piece of gear was invented, you would if you try to do that with a tremolo bar, do that woo, and do a big bend like that, the guitar would just go completely out of tune. But the Floyd Rose allowed you to do that and then stay in tune. So, he figures that out, puts it on his guitar, and he's instantly doing all these crazy, innovative effects with the whammy bar. Nobody's doing it. He has the blazing fast chops, the great phrasing. You can't help when you hear him. It's even on these recordings, it just blows you away. He's how good he is.
Why don't you marry him?
Okay.
So then they get a contract from Warner Brothers. Not a very good one. It leaves them they're over $1 million in debt after their first tour, supporting Journey and Montrose. So we're peeking into the future here. Mm-hmm. But let's talk about their first album. And actually, the way that they work with Ted Templeman is always very quick. They're in the studio, 1-2 weeks tops in general, the working methods. So Ted Templeman sort of figured out that there's also a set of demos called the Warner demos that are kind of probably from pretty much the same time period as the Gene Simmons ones. They're playing some of the same songs, but they're obviously just running through their set live and going straight to 2-track or something. So you listen to those, that they have the sound. Then they have the snare drum sound. They have the big reverb. Like Ted Templeman got him in even just do those demos. Obviously had a vision of how he wanted to record it, and they go into do Van Halen 1, and that has a really specific sonic imprint. The guitar is all panned one way. The reverb comes out the other side. The drums are really big and present. A lot of reverb. It just sounds really huge. Just to anchor us in time. So this is recorded from September to October 1977, and it comes out in 1978. The entirety, the guitar parts took a week. The vocals took 2 additional weeks, and it's rough and tumble. And also, I would say, probably one of my 20 or 30 favorite debut records of all time.
Yeah,
what would you say?
It's one of the classic debut records ever made for sure. They, Ted Templeman was when after Gene Simmons' management passed, and then Ted Templeman saw them not that much later with Mo Austin. So they've got all the top label guys sniffing around. He really wanted them. So he's kind of the label guy and the producer. So he really had a vision for them. And so they go in to track the album. And in a way, it is a little bit rough around the edges, but it's also, compared to what they were doing in the clubs, it's pretty polished. They got the vocals really down. It seems like they kind of tightened up some of the vocal melodies and things. It has sold 10 million copies over the years. It's one of the most successful debut albums ever.
Huge, and it only was peaked at number 19. But it sold
over the years.
Yeah, tremendous amount of copies. And there's a few songs on here that are standards. Running with the Devil, Ain't Talking About Love, Jamie's Crying. To me, I think my favorite song on the record is probably Atomic Punk. What do you think?
Yeah, it's very strong. A lot of good songs on it.
There's not a single bad song on the record.
Yeah, and you also have to discuss Eruption, which is kind of just
Yeah, let's delve into that. That's an important song.
So that is kind of just resetting the bar for all guitar players. So that has so much in it. I mean, it has all the crazy tremolo stuff in it. with the whammy bar, he kind of unveils the
finger
tapping technique in Eruption, and the part. The sort of classic iconic finger tapping riff that ends that is it's actually pretty simple to play. You can kind of learn it if you're a beginner, really. It's kind of pretty cool melodically, but it's really not very difficult to play. So it was kind of approachable, at least that part of it. The rest of Eruption, where he's just kind of playing in freeform style, it's so burning. It's really like,
If you met an alien, like a classic little not E.T., but the alien from Meatballs 2, and you were hanging out with this alien and it expressed an interest in metal, this is probably the album I would probably put on Ain't Talking About Love.
Yeah, they kind of exist in a weird space for me. Where yes, they are metal, but they're not. If you think of what else was going on in metal at the time, it's kind of like new wave of British heavy metals coming out. There's sort of this. They're metal with a sense of like irony. They sort of like it's sort of tongue in cheek, not really very often copied. I mean, there are a lot of imitators of Eddie's guitar style, and people who are looking to have that same kind of like. But nobody can really pull up. They're kind of an outlier. They're kind of like there's.
Look, when I was 11 years old, Judas Priest was just too much for me. It was just I wasn't that metal. And some Sabbath was for me. I wasn't the huge Sabbath kid I remember having the tape of Born Again, for Christ's sake. But Halen, I mean, that was
I think of them almost more.
Easily.
I think of them almost more in a category like Boston or Cheap Trick or
so
something.
Hard rock.
Hard rock. I think of them more in that kind of style than metal.
They're almost interim. They're kind of they have their feet.
They really are their unique kind of genre.
Yeah,
it's kind of amazing how nobody really how hard it is to imitate that sound, and there's not really another band I can think of that sounds like Van Halen and does it well. Yeah.
And another great thing about them is, when they went in to do their second record, they even were able to pull off what was basically a sophomore slump.
Right.
By the way, I give Van Halen 5 stars.
Right. 5 stars for Van Halen 1.
Yeah.
Quite clearly.
Quite clearly 5.
Yeah. He's also, I think Roth as a writer, these songs, yes, they have amazing guitar riffs and the band plays incredible, but he's putting them over because these songs have really good hooks. They're really clever. Like the lyrics are not really cringy. Like he's good. He's a good songwriter.
Yeah.
I think he really doesn't get due for that. I mean, he's kind of a silly persona sometimes, like in a self-cultivated kind of way. Obviously, he's a showman and has a bit of a circus ringleader kind of thing to him.
Definitely has shit.
But I think
to
he gets overlooked as being a really strong songwriter. He wrote a lot of
the
this
melodies
stuff.
are really strong.
Yeah.
These are not just just straight in your face hard rock songs.
They go
They're pop
together
songs.
well. They're a good songwriting team. They don't really get thought of as that way, but they really are.
So then in 1978, a week after completing their first huge world tour, they went into the studio and their second album was done in a week. So it's definitely a little bit less menacing and more backstage party down than the debut. But it's almost as great as an album recorded, recorded directly after a tour in a week. It's as good as it could possibly be.
Yeah, it's got the 2 great singles on it, Dance the Night Away and Beautiful Girls. Great singles.
Beautiful Girls is great. Dance the Night Away, I love. I know there's metalheads out there.
Yeah, that's a great song.
My friend Eric hates that song, but he's real metal, so I think they look down on a song.
They were trying to do, when Ed wrote that, he was trying to do something similar to Go Your Own Way. That was his.
Oh, really?
That's his take
funny.
on writing a song like Go Your Own Way.
That's hysterical.
Yeah.
There's a lot of great songs on the record. I mean, Somebody Get Me a Doctor, Bottoms Up, Light Up the Sky is that sick ascending intro riff.
This record also has some of Ed's most amazing playing and soloing. There's one tune, a song called Out of Love Again on here. That's maybe my favorite Ed solo that he ever played. And there's no tapping in it. There's not really any any special technique to it. He's just sort of playing like a blues kind of there, and it is so on fire. There's a guy who there's YouTube tutorials to play like pretty much any Eddie Van Halen solo out there, but there's a guy who has a tutorial. You can look for it on YouTube. Out of Love Again solo, and he plays it perfect, so you can see exactly how Eddie did it. And it's such a study of economy. His hand like never moves up and down the neck. He's all just staying in that one position and playing all those crazy licks. It's watching somebody do it's really awesome.
I bet you could do it.
It would take me a while to learn it. I don't know. It would take me. I would have
10,
to practice a lot.
minutes.
I'd have to. No, man, it's a lot harder than that. It's very hard to play.
So this album, it's got, at this point they already have the formula established. They have Eruption 2, which is called Spanish Fly here. They have the cover, which is You're No Good. Everything is only just slightly less great than the first album. So we're measuring in a sliding scale here. In a way, it's as consistent as the debut, but the highs just aren't quite as high for all the obvious reasons. I'm going to go ahead and give it 4.5 stars.
Me too.
Woohoo! All right, now we're entering Phase 2, Eddie Gutter Sleaze, 1980 to 1981.
Yeah. So yeah, I always have thought of the 6 Roth albums that start their career as coming in pairs. So VH1, VH2, and then the next 2, and then the next 2. So yeah, this is kind of a darker period.
This is the most interesting period.
Yeah, I agree.
Women and Children First is where we begin. This is 1980, and again, recorded in about 2 weeks. It is a progression, though. There's more studio overdubs, less emphasis on backing vocals. And there's actually the only female backing vocal ever recorded for a Van Halen song on this. Nicolette Larson.
That's right. Could this be magic?
No covers on this. So this is all meat, no chaff. It's heavy as fuck. Goodbye, party down record. This and Fair Warning are slick to the gills with gutter sleaze, basically.
Yeah, there's darker ones on this. There's some cool rave ups on this, like songs that are kind of like hint at their club days. Romeo Delight and Loss of Control, really kind of unhinged. Like
love Loss of Control, man.
Yeah, that's a wild song. This one has some idiosyncrasies. This record. This one's not really full of radio hits, I guess. And The Cradle Will Rock kind of made it on the radio.
That song is so good, man. It's simple. It's just one of their best songs.
Yeah, powerhouse start to the record.
And also, that moment at obviously you do, a minute 47 seconds in, Eddie's moment of reflection on the guitar. Which introduces Have You Seen Junior's Grades?
Yeah.
And so to me, that section right there, that's the apotheosis of their metal perfection synthesis as a songwriting team.
The main lick of And the Cradle Will Rock is not played on guitar. It's on a Wurlitzer electric piano through a bunch of Marshalls.
Oh, cool.
Yeah. So it's a keyboard song, really. But yeah, really heavy.
The 2 staggering classics are And the Cradle Will Rock and Everybody Wants Some.
Yeah, that's amazing. That's got a big epic, like super fun song. And then Could This Be Magic is another acoustic one where Ed plays slide, and he just plays beautiful slide. It's a great song. Yeah, this album's kind of a sort of stepchild in their early catalog, but I think frequently underrated. 5 stars for me for Women and Children First.
Unquestionably 5 stars for me too.
All right, they're doing pretty good so far.
Yeah. Then 1981, Fair Warning. So it sold more than 2 million copies, but this was the slowest selling album of the David Lee Roth era.
Yeah, so to me, this one, the thing that really makes this one stand out is like Ed's guitar tone is like at its absolute most massive. He's famous for what was known as the Brown sound. That's how he refers to the sound of his guitar.
Ween was famous for that.
No, the Brown sound is reference to the very super distorted sound he could get out of his guitar, which again was kind of an innovation. He used a device called the Variac, which is basically kind of like, it's essentially the equivalent of plugging your amplifier into like a dimmer switch and like dimming the lights on your walls. It cuts the electricity to the amp. So the tubes have to work really hard, and you end up getting this like you can hear it happen when like if you're playing guitar and you turn your tube amp off, when the tubes start to crap out, it starts to get really super fuzzy. So he figured out a way to keep it always in that state of like they only have a little bit of electric charge in them, and so the resulting distortion is just this crazy saturated with like beautiful harmonic overtones, and it really reaches its apotheosis, the tone on Fair Warning. Like when that guitar the guitar at the beginning of Unchained, it's like that's the most insane guitar tone anyone's ever achieved.
Yep. Plus you got that Come on, Dave, give me a break. One break coming up.
Yeah, so
that's just a great moment.
Yeah.
That's Templeman, right?
That is Ted Templeman actually saying the "Come on, Dave, give me a break."
That's
line.
one of the great all-time Rockin'est VH tunes, unquestionably.
Yeah, so that's this one has the two singles are Unchained and So This Is Love are kind of the two kind of pop songs, but then the rest of the record's quite dark.
Mean Street, Dirty Movies, Sinner's Swing, Hear About It Later, all amazing songs. So This Is Love, really, really strong record. There's a couple of tunes I could do without, and their first bad song, Push Comes to Shove.
No, I like Push Comes to Shove.
You do?
Yeah, no, I think it fits in great on the album.
It's a fucking disco song.
It's really weird. I love it and it's got great guitar playing. I like that one. The weak spot to me is maybe the closer, the Sunday Afternoon in the Park and One Foot Out the Door.
Weak.
Even that's pretty cool though. He used an electro-harmonics mini synth to get that sound, which is a cheap little almost like a guitar pedal.
Yeah, but it sounds fucking farty. I don't really like the cue. I don't like that.
It's not. That's my least favorite thing on it, but I do like Push Comes to Shove.
Yeah,
I mean you could just hook this whole album straight into my veins. I'd be fine with that.
Yeah. I mean, look, we're splitting hairs now, but what are you going to do? Just talk about how great they are?
The intro to Mean Street is another thing. He's doing this like he's tapping with his thumb and his finger, and it's if you watch him actually do it, it's kind of amazing. And then it kicks in with that great riff. Like he's still really innovating on guitar and still blowing everybody's minds.
And there's like growing pains to try to get to where they would wind up at 1984.
Right.
One Foot Out the Door. It's like they're taking baby steps there, but they don't quite have the formula down yet.
Yeah.
This one I give 4.5 stars.
5 stars, fair warning for me.
5 stars.
Yeah.
Okay. Just because of the couple songs I could do without, but again, we're splitting hairs.
Yeah.
But here we go into a whole different section.
Phase 3.
Phase 3. Big Bad Bill is Sweet William now, 1982 to 1984.
So this is kind of, they have a big commercial breakthrough here. Their only real hit single up to now was Dance the Night Away. I think that went like top 20. So that was kind of a radio hit. They were pretty popular on rock radio, and they were playing arenas and stuff at this time, so they're already pretty big. But then they, Diver Down is kind of, it seems like it's their attempt to do something commercial. So there's a lot of covers on it.
5 out of the 12 songs are covers.
Yeah, and the 2 lead singles are both covers, neither of which I really like very much. Pretty Woman and Dancing in the Street.
Yeah, it's not their moment in the sun. Plus, Big Bad Bill is Sweet William now is basically the template for part 1 of Roth's solo career. Mm-hmm. So that's a love it or hate it thing for sure.
Yeah.
And Happy Trails is a throwaway.
Mm-hmm. I do like the cover of Where Have All the Good Times Gone. I think that's a pretty good cover.
And that's a good choice for a cover, too, because it's not a huge Kinks song, and it's a great one.
Now, the VH originals on this, there's only really 4 of them.
Hang 'em High, Little Guitars, The Full Bug.
And Secrets. Yeah, they're all really good. I mean, the Full Bug's probably the weakest of the 4, but still all cool originals. And then, Little Guitars is kind of the centerpiece.
Right.
More amazing guitar stuff, and that's like, that's a 5-star song. Great song. One of my favorites.
This is, I'm sure you would agree. This is as weak as Roth era Van Halen.
Yeah, this is the
gets.
weakest of the first 6. Still not bad though.
Still solid.
And there's another great guitar piece, Cathedral. That's Eddie manipulating his volume knob and like doing a dotted 8th note delay.
And Intruder. There's another proggy.
Intruder's just the jam. That's just the jam before Pretty Woman. But anyway, it worked because Pretty Woman was a pretty big hit. I think that was like a top 10 hit. And I think when I was a kid, so I was maybe, Diver Down's 82 it comes out?
Yes.
So I think that's probably the first time I was really aware of them was when I heard Pretty Woman.
But
this is
a huge year for them.
Yeah, there's an insane video for Pretty Woman that aired on MTV once, and even in the days of 1982, where you could pretty much put anything on MTV, it was decided to be too risque and offensive, and it was removed. And it's kind of I really want advise you to check it out.
I haven't seen it actually. We got to put it up. We got to put it up.
Yeah, well, we'll put a link to it. If you're easily offended, maybe you want to skip it because it's
not. or get offended.
It's
and
pretty
then
weird.
Right in.
It's pretty weird.
Right in.
I'm not even going to describe what it is out of.
This same year, though, Diver Down comes out. It doesn't necessarily make them superstars, but that same year, Eddie Van Halen plays the solo on Michael Jackson's Beat It.
And that's when I really fell in love, when I heard that.
Right. That's an absolutely iconic solo.
Yeah, that's got all of his tricks in it. It's got the dive bombs with the whammy bar. It's got the legato technique shredding. It's got the pinch harmonics. It's got tapping. It's got his fast tremolo picking. He does all of that in whatever it is, 12 bars or whatever. It's fucking rips.
It's great. And then that next year, nothing much happens. 1983, they're just kind of just putting stuff together and recording, but Eddie contributes the score. And some instrumental tracks to the movie The Wildlife.
Yeah, so if you're a real AVH completist and you want to hear Eddie farting around with the drum machine and playing guitar licks over it, you could check that out.
But isn't he toying around with the synth too?
Yeah, there's synth stuff in there too.
So that kind of gets us there.
Yeah,
I think that kind of gets us there.
Yeah.
But let's take a quick detour, may we?
Yeah, sure.
Okay, let's talk about that fucking legendary Brown M&M contract writer.
I don't know if that story is apocryphal or not. I've heard Roth talk about it again recently.
Yeah, so you know the reasoning behind it.
Yeah, the reasoning is that, they had this very complicated lighting rig, and they were worried that, the technical people weren't reading the instructions closely enough, and that it was going to be a safety hazard. So if they came in and there was red M&M or brown M&Ms in the bowl, that they knew they were dealing with people that weren't reading the contract
right, which
closely.
is totally valid and very smart, I think.
I wonder if that's
I love
really.
it.
I wonder if that's really.
I can totally see that having happened. Why would that be?
That
apocryphal?
seems like an odd way to.
I think that was real. I believe
here's
I've
the
seen
problem. Here's the problem with it. The people who are putting your concert rider together and giving you your M&Ms and like hummus and bread and shit aren't the same people who are rigging up the lights. It's a whole different part of the concert apparatus that does that. Doesn't make it.
I think through really whatever haze they were in at the time, that's probably as good as they could do, and so that's pretty good.
Yeah, I think that story is. They were. Just,
I don't think
they were
it
just
is
being
about
wise asses. I think.
No, I'm more of I have a Peter Pan outlook on that kind of stuff. Yeah. So then we're heading into 1984 and the album 1984. Talk about going out big on top. No cover tunes this time, just pure fire, right? This came out in January '84. It was the last Van Halen studio album until A Different Kind of Truth to feature David Lee Roth on the entirety of it, who wound up leaving the band the following year. We'll get to that.
So yeah, they really kind of scale the heights of the mountain here and just become the hugest thing. They fully conquer the medium of music video. They make 3 music videos from this that are like probably 3 of the most played music videos like ever. It went to the Jump went to number 1.
And I think part of the reason it was so exciting is to look at the recording methods that changed this time around. So the first 5 albums took an average of 2 weeks. The first album took 5 days. Mm-hmm. The rest of them took under 2 weeks, except for one. And this took a year.
Right, and there was not a whole lot of other stuff on the palette before this, other than the trio and Dave. They might throw an occasional keyboard thing in here or there, but Jump is has the first song and then Jump are kind of like these. It's the Oberheim OBX synth is all over it, and it's very prominently like a synth thing. The first couple of songs.
You know what Jump was inspired by, right?
No.
So David Lee Roth was watching a man trying to figure out whether he wanted to commit suicide by jumping off of a skyscraper, and this was his inspiration to him to do it.
Is that right?
Yeah,
huh.
That's what he said.
That's
in his memoir. That's what he said.
I didn't know that story.
Yeah.
It's the most like major key, like bright, happy sounding little synth riff.
I know, that's so great about it. Yeah. And I love that Guided by Voices later had a song called Maxwell Jump, because that's the great Mondegreen of this song.
What's that?
A mondegreen is when you mishear a lyric.
Oh,
so I used to think that,
Max.
like, How Deep Is Your Love was you come to me in a submarine.
Maybe the guy who was going to jump, his name was Maxwell.
It's possible and probable as well. So
I'd say it's almost certain.
It's definite at this point. So this album is just packed with great songs. Obviously, over the course of a year, they were able to put together something of a masterwork. Jump is the obvious one, but to me, there's 3 other crazily good songs. Let's talk about Panama.
It's another one. The kind of, it's really such a cool song. The way just the form of the song, it kicks in with that kind of iconic riff at the top, and then it goes into like a minor key thing, and then that whole.
Plus, it sounds like
there's
they're
this whole
all
dramatic
soloing all at once, but they're creating a great song with a great melody.
There's this whole dramatic intro that kicks in and then never repeats. It just sets up the song. He started doing a lot of stuff. A lot of Ed's solos will be over. There'll be like it's verse chorus, and then he'll solo over some other complete section of the song. So it seems like a whole new piece of music is kicking in. He does that a lot on 1984. I guess throughout the records he does, but really they use that trick a lot on this record.
Panama's probably my favorite song, but then Top Jimmy and Drop Dead Legs are pretty goddamn.
Well, while we're talking about Panama, this is kind of some foreshadowing, but the lyric of that song, it's kind of an extended metaphor about Panama as a car. So it has the double metaphor. It's like maybe it's a car, maybe it's a love interest, right? So it's kind of like let's keep in mind that particular metaphor when we compare it to the work of his successor. Let's just keep the Panama metaphor in mind. So 1984 it has that clutch of really commercial songs. It has I'll Wait, co-written by Michael McDonald.
So there's a definite distinction between side 1 and side 2.
Right.
Speaking of Michael McDonald.
Yeah, so there's the clutch of all the very commercial songs.
Yeah.
Even Hot for Teacher, which is kind of a hit and a single, that's kind of an unconventional pop song. It's like this shredding fast boogie. It's not really another pop song that sounds quite like that.
I feel like they intentionally put deep cuts on the second side.
Yeah, I'm sure. But then, the songs that are not the singles, the songs that are not commercials, they are just ripping. They're shredding so hard in this record.
Yeah.
I love Top Jimmy. That's got another one. That's another one of Ed's kind of guitar innovations. He's playing a Ripley guitar on that. So on a Ripley guitar, it's a stereo guitar, and you can pan each string left or right. So if you listen in headphones, he's playing that great intro to Top Jimmy, which is all open string harmonics, and it's kind of ping-ponging back and forth because the strings are all panned.
It sounds
different.
so badass, that stuff that he's playing.
Yeah, and then then not just the intro. The intro is insanely badass, but then the body of the song, he's also playing in this open D tuning, and it's his riffing on that, just his rhythm playing in that alone. If Eddie Van Halen never played a guitar solo in his life, he would still be one of the greatest guitar players who ever lived, just based on his rhythm guitar playing. He's that much of a genius as a rhythm guitar player. His playing on Top Jimmy is some of my very favorite playing of his.
It's such good. And then you got House of Pain, too, which took them a while to get around to, which to me is staggering because that song in 1976 was basically a done deal. But it's in great form here. The album is incredible. The Michael McDonald song is not my favorite. To me, that's the runt of the litter. And Girl Gone Bad is just okay. But we're splitting hairs because the sum is better than the whatever the whole of his part. The whole is better than the sum of the whole. So I definitely give this 5 stars.
5 stars for me too.
Unquestionably. Now we're going into a tumultuous waters. So after the 1984 tour, Roth decided to quit and form a new band. So there's all
first he did the EP thing,
right,
with kind of a bunch of session guys, and that was really successful. So he does cover. Roth kind of goes solo and puts out this EP called Crazy from the Heat, which is decidedly not a hard rock album. It's pop.
It's him thinking that Diver Down sounds too sleazy.
Right. Yeah. So he does a cover of California Girls that I do not like at all. And
Stinks.
And the cover and the Just a Gigolo thing is okay, I guess. So the Crazy from the Heat to me almost feels like it's kind of in like the Weird Al Yankovic kind of space. It's just kind of doing covers, but it's sort of like a novelty comedy sort of thing. The videos that accompany it are like, you know, meant to be sort of funny.
All I got to say is boozy bop, busy bop.
So yeah, I'm not really super into that phase of Dave's thing. But those songs were both kind of, California Girls especially was a huge hit. It went to like number 2 or something. And those videos kind of like dominated MTV for that year.
Also during that time, he probably thought like, fuck Van Halen, because he was offered a $20 million film deal for a script called Crazy from the Heat.
Right. And he sort of created there's like 3 videos, I think, that have this sort of like Twilight Zone kind of world he's trying to create. In retrospect, it seems kind of not really very funny.
That didn't work. So Eddie invited, they're trying to fill a pretty big shoes. Eddie invited both Patti Smythe of Scandal and Daryl Hall, of all people, to replace David Lee Roth, but they both turned it down.
Patti Smythe had the good sense. Patti Smythe was 8 months pregnant, and she, the band had a reputation for being like really wild. And, hard drinking and like arguing and fighting and throwing things at each other. And it was like high drama. So she was just not really interested for that reason.
And then one day, Eddie went to his Ferrari mechanic, and his Ferrari mechanic had said, hey, I know this guy. He's got his, he loves tequila, loves to party. You guys like to party, right?
That guy's name? Samuel Roy Hagar.
That was 1985. That Ferrari mechanic should be drawn and fucking quartered. Okay, so Hagar fronted Montrose. Now he was a solo artist who had had a very successful year. He had I Can't Drive 55, which was produced by Ted Templeman. And Hagar was like, yeah, let's do this. He played rhythm guitar and sang. And so I'm just going to say, let's talk first, if we can, before we enter into phase 4, about the psychology of somebody who would like Sammy Hagar better than Diamond Dave. So if you know, just at the outset of a relationship with another human being, especially in a professional setting where you have to be with them, and they tell you that Sammy Hagar's that, he puts Diamond Dave to shame, there's no reason to get to know that person. Am I right?
Yeah, okay. Well, a few things about Sammy. I'm going to try to say some nice things about Sammy. I kind of like some of his solo career hits, okay?
Wow.
I mean, I like Your Love Is Driving Me Crazy. That song's kind of good.
Wow.
That's kind of got like good early MTV vibe. There's Only One Way to Rock.
I don't know.
I don't hate it.
Okay. All right.
And
you're a nice guy.
Well, I'm trying to say nice things, but let's pretend there's a world.
Your mama
let's
taught
pretend,
you well.
Hold on. Let's pretend that we're in the alternative timeline and Sammy Hagar never joined Van Halen. You would not hate those songs as much.
True.
You would not hate those songs so bad.
True.
Right?
True.
So, and he's conventionally sort of talented. He can sing sort of high and hit high notes, although it sounds like he does so with immense effort. And I think that's really the problem. That's one of the main problems. Is he's a very high effort sort of singer. So it sounds like he's about to just like bust a gasket at like any kind of given moment when he's singing.
So you ready? Okay.
Right.
Phase 4, Cabo Wabo,
Right.
1985 to 2011. We kicked this off with 1986's 5150.
Right.
U.S. Prime, grade A stamped, guaranteed, grease it up and turn on the heat. You got to throw down and roll it over once, maybe twice. Then chow down and down, down and down. Samuel Roy Hagar, good enough.
So those
Track
are
1.
The first lyrics you hear are those. And then, okay, it's pretty bad when you just read them like that, but it's kind of almost worse when you hear him sing it because the chow down line comes at like a prominent part, like the big hook part, like chow down, down.
Look, and then the big hit on the record has your favorite line that he's ever written.
What's a classic?
Yeah, only time will tell if we stand the test of time.
Right.
You want to sing it?
No, that
Okay.
one I don't need to sing. That one kind of just stands on its own as poetry.
This
as a
was
sort
the-
of MC Escher poetry.
This was their first #1 record, which is what sent me off onto an atheistic path for many, many years. Why Can't This Be Love was #3. Love Walks In was top 30. Dreams. Look, I don't know what to say about this. If we have to explain why this is not good.
Well, okay. So we're kind of poking fun at the good enough lyric, but it's a good one to kind of, we've gone from the last album where there's kind of this metaphor about a car and an object of desire. Maybe it's a woman he's talking about, maybe, to literally the metaphor is that the woman is a piece of meat. That is literally what the metaphor is.
That's how this era kicks off.
That seems worse.
Yeah, it's a little bit
That seems
worse.
a little less sophisticated. I don't know about you.
But this is, if you have to call a spade, this is probably their best album of the Hagar era.
I would agree, yeah. I mean, this is sort of on some of these, it's almost like they should just give the master tapes to Roth and let him take Hagar's vocal off and just make a.
But the music's not even as exciting.
There's some of the tunes on here you could imagine as would have been good Roth songs, like Good Enough. That's a pretty classic Van Halen.
Were
riff.
they written for him in mind, or were they?
He probably
written
just
after?
had a bunch of riffs around.
Yeah,
Summer
yeah.
Nights is another one. That's a cool riff. Probably could have been a good song, but yeah, some of the songs I think even the riffs and the music aren't as good. Like
It sounds like corporate rock.
like
it doesn't
Best
really,
of Both Worlds. I don't really like that.
No, it
that
stinks.
riff. Like I don't really like the title track is kind of sort of like.
It feels like it was written by committee. It doesn't feel like it was just him sitting next to a bottle of Jack or something.
there are kind of like two different kinds of Sammy Hagar songs. There's the kind of double entendre, bordering on single entendre, sexual
Right.
blues
One and a
rave-ups.
half tundra.
So that's one kind of song, and then there's another song that's kind of like a motivational poster kind of song, like the "Don't Give Up, Follow Your Dreams" kind of song.
Right. Sometimes in the same song.
So
Don't give up, follow your dreams, treat that woman like a piece of meat.
right and chow down.
That's right. So I'll give this one 1.5 stars.
I
and
gave it a grudging 2 stars,
Okay.
but it's in that range.
So 1988, we have OU812.
Before we go on to that, though, I think there's another little interesting piece of history to discuss, which is Roth then goes off and forms his own band.
Right.
And he makes the album Eat 'Em and Smile. So at this point, they're kind of like a divorced, they're like it's like your mom and dad got divorced. And and they each got new spouses, right?
Right.
So, Ed got Sammy Hagar and
Right.
Dave got Steve Vai.
And Ted Templeman.
And Ted Templeman went with Dave. Now, I love Eddie's playing a lot. I don't really tend to favor guitar shred playing. He's really kind of the only shred guitarist that I really like a lot. Who I think is who I like his style. Steve Vai's playing on Eat 'Em and Smile comes kind of close. It comes kind of close.
It's as close as you could probably get.
I think that's the best that Steve Vai ever played, probably, is on that record. And he captures a lot of that kind of freewheeling kind of, I'm having so much fun playing the guitar. It's really unhinged and kind of like, and kind of crazy. So Dave kind of got like the better
We're not
replacement
reviewing it,
wife.
but it's definitely the better record.
And I saw both tours. It's like the Roth tour killed the Van Halen tour.
Yeah.
And Roth stayed on MTV, so he's making videos still that are prominently on MTV. Van Halen stopped making videos. There's no videos for really the next 2 albums. I think maybe they made a video for something off OU812, but really they disappear from MTV. So Dave kind of gets the leg up there.
That's when, he was like a superstar at that point.
Yeah, he's headlining arenas in his own right.
But then even by the next one, just to go on a short tangent about Roth's solo career, because we're not going to go through the whole thing, but Eat 'Em and Smile, Crazy from the Heat, or vice versa, and then Skyscraper, which is a very interesting record. He was trying something new. It actually sounds like Angel Eyes or Angel Dream,
yeah,
doesn't it? From the
I
Cherokee
feel like
session.
Skyscraper, he's trying to kind of branch out a little more, and that those records somehow oddly kind of hold up fairly well.
Damn Good is an excellent song.
better than you would think they would.
Yeah.
All these years later, and the Van Halen albums really don't.
Right.
From that period.
Right. So then in 1988 we have OU812, Slip and Slide, Push It In, Bitch sure got the rhythm. I'm holding back. Yeah, I got control. Hooked into her system. Don't draw the line, honey. I ain't through with you. The harder, the better. Oh, let's do it till we're black and blue. Samuel R. Hagar, Black and Blue.
Okay, now we're down to single entendre.
You know,
That,
I just
that
want
is
to.
sadly possibly the best song on the album.
That's gross. By the way, all the Roth era Van Halen records were 30 minutes and stuffed with classics.
Mm-hmm.
Now we're at 50 minutes, and it's all bottom of the barrel garbage, bullshit, excrement.
So there's a lot of bad keyboardy songs on this, furthering the tragedy of the bad keyboardy songs is that now Ed's not even playing his cool Oberheim synth anymore. He has some like bullshit like digital synth or something, and it's all like 80s like Peter Cetera kind of sounding shit. And
then there's a 7-minute song called Cabo Wabo, which I'm guessing in the back of his mind he was thinking it'd be great to have an endlessly long advertisement for my new tequila brand.
I think the song predated the tequila.
Right.
But
Right, because he wasn't going to come out with it until he had an album-length song about it.
that song, Cabo, and I know we titled this segment Cabo Wabo, but it does kind of like I think that's a fair assessment of like their branding as under
Yes.
Sammy Hagar. They went from kind of glitz and glamour and limousines to like they're the
Fat
guys,
guy
they're
in a
the
Hawaiian
guys
shirt.
hanging out at the barbecue.
Yeah. All right, this gets 1 star.
I gave it a 1.5 stars. I don't even know why.
Very generous human
That's
being.
pretty generous.
No.
I mean, we've skipped over like "Feels So Good." That's like totally like it came off a late '80s Steve Winwood album.
I'm
Like,
not talking about individual songs. You could just take it from there.
there's there's a song that was a big hit on this called "When It's Love." That's like kind of a power ballad. So bad. It sold 4 million copies. This record. It was pretty big still.
Eddie must have been sleepwalking through this time. I can't imagine that he was awake during it. But anyway, moving on to 91 for Unlawful Kernel Knowledge, which if you spell out the acronym is hysterically inventive.
Mm-hmm.
Let me get on.
The fuck album.
Yeah. Let me get on. Let me get on. Let me get on some of that. Shake it up. Bake it up. Nice. Let me get on. Let me get on. Let me get on. All that.
Yeah.
I sure love my baby's pound cake. Samuel R. Hagar, Pound Cake. This fucking piece of shit debuted at number 1 and was there for 3 weeks. 52 minutes long, bro.
This is right in the the apex of grunge, right? So this is
Yeah.
like right at the same time. Like, I think they probably played like the VMAs at the same time as like probably Nirvana or something. They probably played the same year.
And somehow it was seen as equally relevant at the time. There's a 7-minute and 6-minute song right in a row on this album. There's just no sense of pacing, no sense of dynamics anymore, no sense of fun. The
Yeah.
fun is gone, long gone.
This album sounds like shit. It
does.
sounds so shitty. The drums are weirdly sound kind of weirdly very far away. I mean, like the drums on Van Halen 1, there's a lot of reverb on them, but they fucking just slap. Those drums are like fucking ass
How
kicking.
about the drums on Top Jimmy?
Yeah,
I
right.
mean, they're crazy.
Or so I listened to this back to back. I was listening to some of this when I sat through this whole thing, and this one's really rough. This one's really like I remember not thinking it was terrible at the time, and that it was like a sort of a return to form. But that's not right.
No.
That's wrong. The guitars, he's kind of stopped playing his. We haven't really talked about the Frankenstrat, but Eddie also kind of like devised and invented his own guitar, the Frankenstrat guitar. And by this time, he had made this deal with Ernie Ball, and he's playing those as Eddie Van Halen Ernie Ball guitars. And the guitar tones are just very brittle and not warm. No brown sound, not like this kind of chorusy, washed out, kind of like very thin and weak sounding guitars. If you play this back to back, like you play like a random track on this back to back with like Panama or something, it's shocking. Like how in your face and great the guitar is on like Panama. And then if you listen to like Pound Cake from this record, like it doesn't even sound like the same person playing.
It's so fucking flat.
They really kind of
dynamics.
de-emphasized his guitars on this record.
And then it took it took 4 years to create the next record because, they were building up to create, their masterwork. So,
Are we going to rate the fuck album?
oh yeah, 1 star.
1 star. That's very fair.
Okay, 1995.
Oh, it has that bullshit song Right Now on it.
Oh yeah,
Right Now.
That's the inspirational.
That's the
apex.
inspirational. It's like that song is like the equivalent of the fucking like poster with the cat hanging on the wire, and it's like just hanging there.
And just to let you guys know, just because we're not delving super deep into the songs with you, we listen to everything.
Yeah, I sat through this fucking thing.
I had not heard most of the Sammy Hagar stuff only because I knew I wouldn't like it.
It's almost funny to think about you sitting and listening to it because this is something that you would never, under any circumstances,
Hated it.
listen to.
I really hated it. Anyway, but then things changed because in '95 they make Balance. This ain't grooving. This ain't funky. It's on my back, but it ain't no monkey. No. Oh yeah, give me some of that big fat money. That's what I want. Big fat money. Big fat money. Samuel Roy Hagar, Big Fat Money.
He must have been listening to a lot of Dylan during that phase.
I'd say.
That seems like it's a lot more sophisticated.
So what changed with this record is, the band worked 8-hour days for 3 months recording the album, and you can tell. Just kidding.
This one they brought in a big name hotshot producer, Bruce Fairbairn, who had done the Bon Jovi records, the big like New Jersey and Slippery When Wet. Keep in mind this is 1995, so it's a little bit of a weird choice to be like, let's get the Bon Jovi guy. I mean, it's kind of pretty far in the past at this point.
It's amazing that it's still reached number 1. I mean, you would think by this point, seriously, just in terms of the turning of the tides with music, that they would have been squeezed out.
This was the first Van Halen album that came out that I never owned, that I never actually owned a physical copy of. I remember seeing the cover of it and thinking, maybe.
You got deep in.
I stayed with them through the fuck album.
Yeah. Yep, you were hoping. I get it.
Yeah.
You want to just give it a rating?
Well, there's a lyric in this one that I picked out it's from the single I Can't Stop Loving You. Okay, check this out. I can't stop loving you, no matter what I say or do. You know my heart is true. Oh, I can't stop loving you. A grown-ass man wrote that. A grown adult human man.
Quote, unquote.
Wrote that.
Yeah, quote, unquote. So I give this 0 stars.
What did I think I gave this... Oh, hold on. I gave it a half star.
But Balance is really bad.
Balance is pretty bad.
And then in 96... they contribute 1 song to the Twister soundtrack. It's very cleverly titled Humans Being, and this is a very important song. In fact, it's unquestionably the most important song they ever did because it's the last recording to feature Sammy Hagar before he left the band in June 96.
Yes.
It's a very important
if
song.
you really want to dive deep...
I give it 5 stars.
If you really want to go as deep, this is as far as you can probably go into the rabbit hole. But Ed also recorded an instrumental for Twister called "Respect the Wind."
Okay. Is that great?
No, I gave it 0 stars.
Okay. Whereas you give Humans Being 5 stars for its importance.
I gave Humans Being 1 star.
Okay. All right.
I kind of went for a literal interpretation of Humans Being. Then, in 1996, a miracle happens.
That's right.
They record 2 songs with David Lee Roth.
Muted. A muted response from Roth. So Best of Volume 1. That's a very optimistically titled record. So there's 2 new songs, Can't Get This Stuff No More and Me Wise Magic.
So I remember first hearing Can't Get This Stuff No More. The minute Roth starts singing, it's like, they're back.
Yeah.
They're back.
Immediately, you can hear it. It's like, oh.
They completely don't suck.
Yeah.
What happened?
And this is actually, these 2 songs are very important in the full gestation of the band because it's the last time that the original 4 guys recorded.
Right.
Not original 4. Sorry, Mark Stone. But the real guys.
Right. Yes.
The
classic
non-losers.
Lineup. The classic lineup.
The non-losers.
So, yeah, it's like all the swagger and the style is instantly back. It's like, Roth is singing this kind of like syncopated melody that has swing. It's like the hook is good. I mean, even Eddie's guitar playing sounds like it's kind of rejuvenated.
And it even transcended the fact that Glenn Ballard produced it.
Right. Yeah, that is kind of weird that he did
Yeah, it is. It's Can't Get the Stuff No More is very good, but Me Wise Magic is awesome.
Yeah, that one's cool. I prefer Can't Get the Stuff.
Really?
But I only because Roth I feel like he kind of over sings a little bit on Me Wise Magic. He's kind of like it sounds like he's kind of singing out of his range. But yeah, I like them both. I slightly prefer Can't Get the Stuff. I would say like Can't Get the Stuff I would give 5 stars, and
I give
Me Wise Magic 4 stars.
Yeah, I give both of those songs. I'm not looking at the rest of the record. Just those 2 songs, I give 4 stars.
Yeah, they're a worthy comeback. We'll put them on the playlist.
So let's talk about September 4 in 1996.
Yeah, okay. So then they go on the VMAs in 1996, the 4 of them, and they announce a comeback. And for a minute, it seems like it's going to happen.
Right.
Now, at this point, they're only 12 years out from 1984. You figure if they had gotten together and made an album, probably would have been pretty good.
The whole story behind this thing is just awesome. So, David Lee Roth thought, I'm back in the band. But there's like is it apocryphal that they used him for a publicity stunt?
I think what happened is they got together and realized that they don't get along at all, and that was it.
Because he was. They had presented an award to Beck, right? They were standing in the back, and Roth was mugging like crazy, like it was crazy from the Heat days, right? Eat 'em and smile.
Yeah. I think they felt like he was upstaging them. Like we should kind of zoom out and say they just don't get along, and that's kind of another thing. I really do recommend the Mark Maron DLR interview. I'll put a link to that as well in the show notes. It is really worth listening to. He talks about pretty candidly about their relationship. He said they never got along. They never really liked each other. The 2 brothers are in a perennial state of argument with each other. So it's just a very high drama kind of, and I don't know who pulled the plug. I think it seems like the Van Halen brothers pulled the plug because they thought Roth was upstaging them.
Do you know what happened directly after the Beck thing?
No.
So they went backstage and there was a press conference, and they were obviously asking about when's the reunion tour. And Eddie said, first I need to do a hip replacement, and I want to record a new studio album before a tour. So then in private, David Lee Roth said, Eddie, you shouldn't really talk about your hip replacement. It's kind of lame. And they almost came to blows, and then that ended the reunion. It was about the hip replacement.
that sounds like so totally awesome. Right on. That's how they are. That's how they operated.
So unfortunately, that reunion it lasted all of 2 songs.
We just can't have nice things.
No, exactly. But we did move on to a very, very nice thing. In 1998, they produced a record called Van Halen 3. In the grand tradition of Velvet Underground Squeeze and Genesis's Calling All Stations, we have an album by a band that everyone loves that nobody would care about in their right minds.
Yeah, even the band themselves, I think, have sort of scrubbed this from...
Right, they don't really see it as a valid record. Oh, what else goes in here? Isn't there some Motley Crue record that's like new metal, like a rap metal thing?
They kind of made like a grunge record, Motley Crue.
Yeah, I think that gets lopped into the same thing.
They had John Corabi was the singer. Wasn't
that's it?
Vince
That's
Neil.
it. Yeah, that's the one they're trying to scrub that too.
Yeah.
So anyway, this is the only album that features the lead vocalist of Extreme, Gary Cherone. This is the last to feature Michael Anthony, so there's a silver lining there.
So Gary Cherone seems like a nice enough fellow. He's stylistically kind of pretty similar to Sammy Hagar.
Yeah,
kind of has like a similar kind of high effort delivery. Sounds like he's kind of always like working at the top maximum level of how much he can exert himself when he's singing.
Can you imagine though the decision to make this record 65 fucking minutes long?
Yeah,
that's a
common thread of things when
ballsy,
when
man.
when you get to this stage of recorded music history, it's just like every record was like
almost everything is over 5 minutes long. Almost everything on here could be 3 minutes long. There's no real audience for this.
If you're thinking this record's going to be like the Eyes Wide Shut of Van Halen's career, and it's due for a critical reappraisal, and maybe there's good things on it, no, it's not.
The best thing about this record is that it's better than Balance. I'll give it 1 star.
I gave this 0 and found it even worse than Balance, but this is kind of these records are so bad, it's kind of hard to compare them against each other. I like this one even less than that.
My favorite thing is that after that, in 1999, they started work on a follow-up album.
I know.
Called Love Again.
I should also mention the closing song on Van Halen 3, which is How Many Say I, which is a piano ballad that Ed sings. And it's one of those things like, why didn't somebody tell him no? Why didn't somebody tell him that this can't be on the record? It really distinctly kind of sounds like the Dana Carvey Choppin' Broccoli skit where he's kind of writing it on the spot. And it's like really long and...
I like it a little bit better than Balance. Again, who cares? It's a bad album no matter what.
Yeah, that one didn't pan out.
Then they were just kind of adrift for a while, and then in 2000,
they did some touring, I guess, back with Sammy, I think, in that period.
Well,
Sammy came back and they toured a little bit.
Sammy came back because in 2004 they released The Best of Both Worlds.
Yeah. Hey, we're getting back together with Sammy. Got
the hand, put it where it's going to heal you. Got the finger, put it right there on the trigger. Well, pump it up, baby, make it bigger. Samuel Roy Hagar, up for breakfast.
Still got it, Sammy.
Yeah.
Still got it.
So there's 3 new tracks that Sammy Hagar shit out for this release. I'll give it a 0.5 star.
Yeah, same. So they also made some demos with Roth in like 2000. I
didn't know.
Yeah, they got together and they did some recording with Roth around 2000, but then like somebody said your mama's fat or something, and then they had to stop that project.
more hip replacement drama.
That was it. They just don't get it at this point. So they fritter away another decade doing essentially nothing. They got inducted into the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame in 2007 and did not perform because Ed was in rehab for alcohol. So a little concerning, Ed's health here at this time. Kind of a lot of drinking going on. But then they went into the studio in 2011, really at the behest of Ed's son Wolfgang,
which leads us to Phase 5.
Right.
Mommy and Daddy get back together. 2012.
Remarkably, the story has a happy ending.
It really does.
It's a redemption story.
It is. So, this record, thank God it happened. That's all I have to say. Most of the tracks on this were originals and not reworked tracks, right?
Yeah, so most of these came from, and I think this was Wolf's idea. How to get that old sound, have Roth back in the band. There is a lot of stuff that were on both the Zero demos and the Warner demos that never came out. So and a lot of them were like very classic Van Halen sounding riffs.
And these date back. So 7 of the album's 13 songs date back to between 75 and 77.
Right.
That's why the record's as incredible as it is.
Yeah, and then there's another song, Blood and Fire, that was from around the 1984 era.
84, right.
And so it has that good time feeling. It has I feel like the one song where they kind of took a swing and miss was the first single in the lead-off song, Tattoo.
I kind of like that.
Which, in its original form, this is a very obscure Van Halen piece. It was called Going Down in Flames, and it was kind of a dark sort of song. Where a Tattoo is kind of striving to be kind of a goofy pop song. It's the only one that has kind of a synth on it. I do like that one. It's okay. When they released it as a single, I think people were kind of a little bit disappointed. They probably shouldn't have made that the single. But right after that, the album kind of takes off, and there's a bunch of good songs on it. It's again maybe a little long. If they had made it 10 songs instead of whatever it is, 15, it might have been a bit stronger. But on the other hand, I'm glad to be able to hear all that stuff.
There's only one song I really don't like, Honey Baby Sweetie Doll.
Which that one's an old one too.
But, the great songs to me are Tattoo, She's the Woman, Chinatown, Blood and Fire, Bullet Head, as is The Trouble with Never and Big River.
Yeah, I like You and Your Blues a lot. That
that
one
one's
is a new one that Ed had recently written, and it had, when the chorus kicks in, it has the great Van Halen backup vocal sound. That's another kind of one of the things that really makes him sound like Van Halen is when Ed is singing backup vocals, and I think Wolf does a really good Michael Anthony approximation.
Yeah.
Wolf is very talented. He got his dad and his uncle's talent, and he kind of shepherded this project through, kind of kept them on task. From what I understand, kind of helped them pick the riffs, and it was like a pretty big part of this record getting made. And I think that kind of Ed was very excited to work with Wolf. And what can you say? The band's Van Halen. You can't really look. Seems like he belongs.
Here's what I'll say about this record. I think it's actually better than Diver Down.
Sure, I could see that. Yeah.
So that in itself is good enough. It means it fits into the canon. It's a great thing that it happened because Ed died. What year did he pass away?
I think just last year.
Yeah. So
20.
That's it for the band.
Right.
And so to go out on a note like this is probably a treat for them because they get to tie up loose ends.
Yeah, and they toured. They did a big, very successful tour with Roth back in the lead vocal role, and I love the guy, but he was struggling to get through a lot of those performances. He was never a great live performer, really. It was more about the kind of jumps and the kicks. And he's definitely kind of struggling to get through some of these, but he gave it the old college try. So I didn't get to see any of those shows, which I kind of wish I had gone and seen one.
And Roth is now officially retired. No, he'll be officially retired in about a month and a half. When is it? January. After the early January 2022 shows.
Diamond Dave, you think you're going to take up golf in your retirement?
Yeah.
Okay, cool.
All right, so let's do our top 3 countdown. My number 3 best Van Halen record is 1984. My number 2 Van Halen record is Women and Children First. And my number 1 top Van Halen record of all time is Van Halen 1. My worst is Balance.
Nice. Okay, well, this is like kind of, for me, this is really like trying to choose between your favorite children, but I'm going to go ahead and go. My number 3 Van Halen record is Women and Children First. My number 2 most favorite Van Halen album is Van Halen 1. And my number 1 most favorite Van Halen album is Fair Warning.
Cool.
Pretty different lists.
Cool.
We usually kind of agree on these pretty much.
Worst?
But, worst is Van Halen 3.
Interesting. You don't like when an artist branches out, do you, Joe?
I don't really call that branching out.
Very ambitious 65-minute LP, my friend.
Yeah.
All right. Well, we really want to thank you for joining us. I know, I love these guys. Joe, it's like his idol, so he was really looking forward to this one.
And thanks again to Diamond Dave for sitting in with us.
So definitely follow us on Facebook, Instagram, Twitter. Unquestionably follow us on the platform of your choice. You want to flip those cards at all, Joe?
Yeah, we're going to have a butt-kicking playlist for this, so that'll be available too on the Spotify. Yes, follow us on all platforms, Spotify.
With all kinds of links and goodies, and do a deep dive with us. Trust us, it's fun.
Yeah.
We'll see you around next time.
See you next time. Bye-bye.